Hey everyone, welcome into episode 16 of Tivoli Zoo. In today's episode, we're going to be tackling a new area of the zoo. It's the Toyota Elephant Passage as it currently exists in the Denver Zoo, and really looking forward to this part of the project. It's something that I've sort of been anticipating, and I think it will end up being the sort of crown jewel of Tivoli. It's certainly the best exhibit at the Denver Zoo. It's interesting, they took a lot of cues from their work on the Predator Ridge area in terms of the design of the exhibit, so making it a rotating exhibit where the animals can go to different yards with different species. They've got a lot of different species within the sort of center of the exhibit as well, so it's going to be a challenge to pull off in the game, but I'm really looking forward to it and excited to see how we're able to bring it into the game here and make it look as true to real life as possible. So anyway, let's start off the episode by taking a look at the Google Earth view. Okay, so taking a look at the Google Earth view here, you can see this is the entrance area of the Denver Zoo. Here is Predator Ridge. I just want to give you some points of reference. This is the Education and Conservation Center here. This area is what makes up the new African savanna portion of our exhibit, or of Tivoli Zoo, I should say. It comes and hugs this path here as well, and then you've got that new corridor here that goes underneath that land bridge to connect these areas as well. So you can see Toyota Elephant Passage is a massive exhibit, as you would expect for something that houses elephants as well as the Indian rhino. So yeah, it starts down here. You've got a restaurant, you've got an amphitheater for an educational show, restrooms, and then all of this backstage for the exhibit. This, I believe, is for the rhinos. This is obviously the elephant house. And then you've got gibbons here, and then the interior is made up of, it's got otters, river otters, fishing cats, and then this section here is for the clouded leopard. So lots of different species. Oh, and there's cranes in here as well. So ton of different variety inside of the exhibit, but it is absolutely massive. So this is probably going to end up being a two-part series, just because I am going to do the interior of the elephant house, since it's something that in the Denver Zoo you can go inside if the elephants are inside and take a look at. So just a lot of work to tackle here, but let's take a gander at the master plan as well. All right, here's the master plan. This helps give you a better idea from that Google Earth view of kind of where things sit. So again, here's the new African savanna, Predator Ridge, our coastal exhibit over here, the Asia highlands and predators, which is going to be changing a little bit. But then you can see down in here the existing Toyota Elephant Passage. So lots of infrastructure back here, which we'll probably try to tackle in part 2 of the episode, I think. I really want to try to do this core area here, and then we'll sort of expand out. So we'll see how much of it we can get taken care of in this first episode. Okay, I also wanted to share this. Special thanks to a member of the Bro Nation Discord, Stoppable Stan, for providing this to me. He was able to dig up the original sort of design plan for the Toyota Elephant Passage. And the nice thing about this is you can see it does show the various holding areas for the animals, the rhinos over here, the gibbons, and then the elephants. So what's interesting is this, I think currently the Denver Zoo has 4 or 5 Asian elephants. They're all male. So the Denver Zoo only has male elephants. And they can hold up to 8. So, but I think it's only like 4 or 5 currently, which is what we'll end up doing in this project here. Unless I decide to get a couple more in there just to make sure that all these yards have something for the in-game peeps to take a look at. So we're going to start with this building. It seems like it's the biggest mass. Something that I try to do when I plan an area, especially something that's already existing and you're trying to copy, can be really difficult. So usually I'll start with the structures, and then one nice thing about Google Earth is there's a measuring tool that actually allows you to measure the buildings or measure a certain area. It's not super precise, but actually let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick. So yeah, so here on the left-hand side, and I think you can do this in Google Maps as well, but I find it to be a little more accurate and precise in Google Earth. So you just select the ruler tool. You can go in here. So I'll put this on the corner of the building and measure all the way across. So 55, 56, again, it's not super accurate. So what I typically do, just because it's really easy for your scale to get massive in both Planet Zoo, and the same thing happened in Planet Coaster, your scale can really get big. So I'll err on the lower end of that number. So I won't, and the other thing too is, since the game operates on a 1, 2, and 4 meter grid, I'll go ahead and make sure that I'm on a number that makes sense where I'm not going to be fighting the game either, but I usually scale it down a little bit just to make sure I'm not getting too crazy in terms of size and scale. And then the nice thing here is once you have your buildings, you can kind of position them in an area, and then you can use other building pieces as rulers. So if I wanted to see, okay, from this lake here to this fence is 48 meters. So what I could do is just use a bunch of wall pieces to make a 48 meter ruler and put it in between there. And you can kind of do that all over the place to help you lay things out and get a better idea of your structure and scale for a project. Especially, obviously it's not as much of an issue when you're doing something that's unique and original, but when you're doing something that you're trying to recreate, that's a very helpful process. So starting out, I've decided to try to do as much of the terrain work as possible. It's difficult to do this as well without anything as a frame of reference for scale. But again, I've tried to use some rulers and things like that. I've also tried using a program where you can overlay an image onto the game. It was somewhat helpful. I kind of use that for these two ponds here. I won't call them lakes. In Colorado, we don't really have what's a proper lake. I guess this one's a lake. And then this is a pavilion building that I've started to work on too. I got a little bit sidetracked and decided to tackle that. So this is going to be a really cool part of this project, just the sort of background city and the lake here. So this was helpful to get a frame of reference for the back end of the zoo and kind of where it's going to be. So you can see I've put the roads in with the sand terrain paint. You've got your road that comes on the back side of the zoo, and then some of the roads here and pathways on the interior of the zoo. So you can see I've got the elephants in here for scale. For when I start the building, I want to make sure that I do the height and the door openings and things like that to a proper scale for the elephants. So I just wanted to get them in there for that purpose, and then I've just sort of painted in where I think the different yards are going to go for this particular exhibit. Obviously, this is probably going to change, but it does help as a starting point. So I'm probably going to have some pretty good leaps in terms of progress between each clip here, just because there's so much to do. I want to make sure I get as much of it in as we possibly can to this episode. So I'm not going to do a lot of minutia in terms of each little part of the building that I'm doing, but mostly because a lot of this stuff you probably are aware of. The techniques. Like I used the dome building method to build this roof. Which is something that I know there's tutorials out there. I think Rudy Renkamel probably has the best one in terms of how to do this. But basically, you get a pivot point on the grid. You build out one section, you copy it over, and then you can unselect the gridded piece and select the non-gridded pieces and then copy them around using the rotation tool. So that's how I was able to build this roof here. It's got that typical sort of metal roof look. Obviously, you can't use the in-game pieces for something like this. It's got to be completely custom, which is going to obviously mean this is going to have a pretty dense piece count in terms of this entire area. So one thing I'll do is I'll try to put in some photos as we're going of the different areas so you can see what they look like in real life if you're not familiar with this particular exhibit. So, but the way this works, as you could see from that plan that we had, is that all of these are different sort of holding areas for the elephants. There's up to 8 of them. The way that I think this works, and it's just from looking at that design, is you've got openings here, you've got openings here and openings I believe here for the elephants. And what that allows them to do is it provides an interior corridor where they can move the elephants inside of these areas, and then also like an exterior way, because I think all of the different pens open up in between each other too, so that you technically could keep an elephant on the inside all the way around to this other opening over here. And then one other interesting thing is that through this section, there's actually another way where they can move the elephants between the yards. So basically what you'll see when we get further along is that they can completely rotate the elephants or the rhinos all the way throughout these different exhibits here in these different yards. All right, so as I mentioned, we're going to have some pretty big jumps in between each cut here in progress. So this is the exterior now, and this is, you can start to see the central area where most of the guests will view this entire elephant house. So it's really a brilliant design. When you're down here at peep level, you really can't see the bulk of the structure, which is nice because this whole little area here, if you look back at the master plan, is sort of supposed to be like a little village, and so you really get immersed in that when you come down here. It's a really smart way to hide this massive building with not very much scenery, honestly. I mean, most of it's bamboo, and then you've got this sort of central gatehouse here, some educational boards, and then again the sunshades sort of blend into. The sunshades act as a nice transition from this more highly themed elements in the front here to sort of back into the modern elephant enclosure for those times where you do happen to see all of them together. So like I said, I am going to be doing this in interior here. So if we come down through this structure and come in. So the way that the elephant passage works in terms of the guest viewing on the interior is you have a platform here that you can come inside, and that's the extent of the interior in terms of where you can actually go. But the nice thing is that a lot of times you'll come in, if the weather's not like great or something, they might have the elephants in here and they might be doing training with them, and so you'll have all the keepers down here working with elephants in this main interior yard, or they could be off to the side, and you can see we've got these various panels that can open up and allow the elephants to put their legs through for foot cleaning, or put a trunk through, things like that. And then you've got your keeper access here. So this is something that really, once we got the mesh pieces, this really came to life and is something that I think is super realistic in terms of what you would find inside of a zoo. So I'm really pleased with how all of the metal doors and the wiring across here are coming together inside of this project. So you can see here, these are these are custom, but these are from the workshop. It's this set here. I want to make sure I give credit here. Let me find it. That's part. So the best one I think it's this set. So there's two sets from the same creator, and these are by Vigoga. I should have remembered that. So yeah, these are incredible sets, and the way that he's done this, I want to show real quick, are genius, because, excuse me, this is the wrong one. Hold on one second. Let me pull up the other one. That's that set. Oh, no, sorry. This is the right one. So the way he's done this is genius. So he's got a pivot set up. So on these gates like this, you can just open them very seamlessly if you want to have that as a feature for your exhibits or your habitats. So really, really smart thing to do. Not something I would have thought of, and to be able to figure out how it would rotate on the in-game access, I think axis, I should say, is really, really smart. So highly recommend you put these on. They are on the Tivoli Zoo blueprint workshop list, but I will link all of the blueprints I show off in today's episode in the description as well. So those are part of his set. I did have to tweak them a little bit to make the scale fit better, but I love the way he did these tracks up here. So this is something that we can actually slide open and closed, and that's going to be the theme for basically this entire building. So we've got even these side doors here that allow them access to the yards that open and close. So I'm really, really excited about that being a feature of this interior. So again, the way that this works is there's a keeper path, and then there's a path for the elephants. So the elephants can move on this interior corridor where they can take them from different pens into here or out into the yards, or they can travel through all of the different pens this way and then back out that way into the yards. So really genius design. And then up here, you've got catwalk for the keepers and the vets and things like that that comes on this central room. And then I'm pretty sure, I haven't been able to find anything concrete, but I'm pretty sure the way it's built is that they also have catwalks on the interior here that they can see down into the different cages here. So really, really cool design, and I'm excited to continue to make it come to life. It has been a challenge. I've been having to go back and forth a lot between the various reference materials I have, and the actual building itself. So, we're making some progress. It's starting to look more and more like the elephant passage, I think, and then as we continue to work our way out, we'll work on the rest of the function as well. All right, so continuing to work on this interior, I'm pretty happy with how it's looking. I think the only thing I have left to do in terms of a lot of this central area is there's a catwalk that goes around up here. I've decided not to use the in-game path because the peeps aren't going to, like the staff isn't going to come up here anyway. So I do want to use scenery pieces. I'm just working out how to make that look really nice. And then again, the pens and the cages, I don't know what the technical term is, but where the elephants stay in their pens, I guess. Still figuring out the details on all of those as well, and looking at how they access different yards and things like that. So out here, there's a corridor that comes down to this area, and then there's a gate here that lets them into this yard as well as through here. So, and then there's an outside holding area for the elephants back here too. So you've got additional doors now. And then there's a gate, from what I can tell, a gate that separates the two as well. So there's tons of functionality built into this thing. They did a really, really good job designing it. I'm sure they obviously had tons of input from the keepers themselves. But you can see this is the area where guests can come in and watch if there's anything going on in here, or if the elephants happen to be on the interior. So if we head back out here, again, this is, I think I referenced this in the first clip, so there's another way that they can move the elephants in between these two yards here. So these would, and mine aren't as good as Vigoga's, but basically it would function like this, where it would block off this area here, the gates would swing open in both directions, and then the elephants can move through from this yard to this yard. So really started to make a ton of progress on the little village here. So mostly just blocking out the buildings. These are probably going to have to be custom roofs, because one thing I noticed is there's lots of skylights on both of these structures for the animal holding, as well as just allowing some natural light into the interior. Similar to the Predator Ridge, when they designed this, they really wanted it to be a green focused design. So I think they utilize a lot of natural light instead of having to rely on a lot of electricity for the interiors. So just working out, again, I used the measurement tool from Google Earth to kind of get this in. Again, I scaled it slightly down from the actual real life building, just because of how I've built so much of this. And again, I don't want to make it too big either. So it is going to be a challenge to get some animals in here. If I decide to make them functional, they'll probably just be implied exhibits similar to some of the ones in the tropical discovery area. So did some additional terrain work trying to get these pools basically in the right spots, they're going to be a crucial sort of marker for scale as well. One great tip, and if you've been paying attention to the series for a while, you saw me use this for the coastal area as well. You can use these glass pieces to determine where your water level is going to be. In the game, the water level is every meter, so it's going to be, you can see there, and then a meter up. So you can't do anything in between. So if you can find the meter spot, you can put the glass pieces down there, and then you can go a meter up, a meter down, and you're going to be able to tell where your water line is going to be. And this is helpful for determining like the edges of the water, especially, and then as well as dealing with paths and things like that, because the combination of path work, terrain work, and the water in the game can be tricky and frustrating. So quick tip for you there. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and just do as much as I possibly can and bring you in for one last sort of update before we do a final tour, just because this video is already getting pretty long. So I'm gonna get a lot of work done, and then we'll jump in and sort of do an in-peep tour after one more update. Okay, so I know I said that there would be additional update or progress segments here, but I decided to just keep working and get as much done as I possibly could. So this is going to be the last update, which is why we're in the peep view. We'll take an aerial look as well, but wanted to start down here. So where we are, which I love this little view, it really draws you in and wants you to come explore this area. So we're right underneath this second pedestrian walkway under this land bridge for the African savanna, and that's what gives them access to the barns back here. So really happy with how all of this turned out. Again, the amazing zoo map that Rycie made for us in the last episode. So yeah, you come down into here and you get your first view of the area, as well as where the elephants could possibly be in this section of the yard. So I think this is like yard 3 in terms of the plan, but my favorite part, and you don't really get this kind of view in the Denver Zoo. I did this intentionally to draw your eye down here and hopefully make people want to explore this area. So yeah, we'll continue going up here. So on this side, you've got the African savanna, and we'll keep working our way up here. So some of this stuff is just blueprints. I'm trying to pick out the right climbing structures for the gibbon area. But this is one of my favorite things over here. You come in and see this view of the city over the back of the exhibit. You can also see the interior of the interior of the exhibit, as well as the interior of this building inside the exhibit. One thing I noticed in the design is that they do separate a couple of pools, so the elephants can get in the water down here, but apparently these smaller pools are heated. So depending on the weather, they may be more likely to get in there versus one of the others. But this was one of the more challenging parts of this build. They've got 3 of these sort of structures throughout the exhibit. So there's one here, there's one in, I guess this is yard 4. There's one in yard 3, and then there's one in yard 1 way over here. But I only got this one done, and I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure the way that these work and the purpose that they serve. One is obviously for some shade, a shade structure, but I think it's for the trainers to be able to do things with the animals when they're in the actual habitat, when they're not backstage. So you've got a stairwell that goes up here. I would imagine this is to occupy the elephants with their trunk if other keepers are trying to do things like with their feet, or you've got an opening here as well. So I couldn't get a ton of detail on these things. I just tried to put openings in where I thought it made sense and where the keepers would need to be able to work with the animals when they're on exhibit. So that's one of my favorite little details here in this particular yard. And then you come back out over here. You got a nice little carve out area where you can step off the main path and look at the elephants if they happen to be up in this direction. So a lot of this is still unfinished. So this is going to be the area where, again, they can rotate the animals. Like I've come to the Denver Zoo and I've seen the Indian rhino in here. I've seen the elephants in here. But for the purpose of the game, we're going to keep the rhinos in here. And then there will be the tapir over here. So we didn't get to that, but we got the central corridor done. And one of my favorite things here is, we'll get out of are these gates. So the way this works is when they want to move the animals between the yards. So you've got that one, and obviously the peeps just walk through it, but you've got that one, and then these doors, these gates open as well. So yeah, so you've got a nice little corridor here. They can block off, people from coming anywhere near this, and then the elephants or the rhinos can move between the yards here, which is awesome. Alright, so let's keep going down into here. You can see we've started to work on the gibbon area. This is the housing building for the gibbons. It's definitely highly themed because it's has such a prominent place inside of the exhibit. But this is one of my favorite things about the Toyota Elephant Passage. So when we get there, obviously there's no gibbons in the game, but I'll probably make these a little bit taller because they actually have ropes that go across between these different islands. So there's an island here, and then there will be one right here that transitions from the building, and that's how the gibbons make their way around this habitat. They spend all of their time either on the little islands or going across the ropes in between the islands. So the other cool thing about this is when you do come into this area here, you can see into the yard back here. So if there happens to be an elephant in the yard that day or one of the rhinos, you can get a great look at that as well. But this is just the start of building this out. Still have a lot of work to do here on both sides of this central area of the Elephant Passage. Here you have a keeper access point, so they can come right out from the gibbon area here and be right on stage if they need to be, or go back there very easily. And then this is one of my absolute favorite views coming in here to the habitat with the elephant right there. And they will come down and use this pool here, which is awesome to see. Usually it's after they've taken a good mud bath up there. I think that's what that elephant's doing right now. So yeah, just really, really pleased with how this all came together. I think it's pretty true to form for the Denver Zoo, and I'll put up a photo so you kind of see what this area looks like. But I just love you get peaks of the skyline behind, and it really feels like there's a lot of depth here in the habitat, going all the way back to the elephant house there. So continue along, and you've got a little educational outpost here with a bronze skull for an elephant. Let's see if I can get some better light on it. It's a little bit tough with the way the lighting is, but yeah, you've got just a bunch of educational stuff, and I think Rycie is probably going to come back and do some custom things. These are all from the workshop. These are actually hers from the workshop, which I highly recommend you take a look at her page if you haven't already. But these would be perfectly generic for really any sort of exhibit you might have. And then these are also from the workshop, which I will link to below. But and so is this skull. I just recolored it to try to make it look sort of bronze, which I think was successful, I hope. So yeah, so then we come here. Let me change the time of day a little bit better. All right, so we come back across this bridge, and I really enjoy this as well. There's a cool little waterfall feature from the pool up there that comes down. You can see the cranes in their habitat there, and then you can still get a great view of the elephants if they happen to be in the pool, or in this case taking a nap up there. Yeah, I think that one's getting up. So yeah, make your way up this pathway into the little village, and you can see all of the cool flags hanging from building to building. This is where you get your best view of the cranes, looking into their habitat. These are from Mealie, I believe. Of course, it's going to click the barrier. Yeah, I'm pretty sure those are from Mealie's workshop. I will also link those below, but they have a whole range of different cranes for different species that you can pick out in their set. So, and then we get another little peek into the habitat here for these guys, and then from there, your view is really blocked off as it draws you further into the village here. As you get a nice open perspective. And you've got another opportunity to view the elephants from this hut here, if you want. And I love how you just get little hints and glimpses of other elements of the exhibit, like the Gibbon house right there, too. All right. So we make our way back over here. So this is the clouded leopard internal part of the exhibit. So it's not open to the public, but that's where like the keepers take care of the animals and things like that. This section is open to the public, so we'll come in here. Nothing's done on the interior yet, obviously, but I'm going to have some implied exhibits in there for people to come in here. I might put one in that functions just to actually draw peeps into the building, but I'm really, really happy with how this view turned out here as you walk towards this opening. I love the depth here as well. You get to see into the African savanna. I wish there was an elephant up here for this part of the recording, but really, really happy with how all this looks. And then you come out here. Nice little detail pieces from the workshop as well. And then lots of nice foliage to sort of break the gap. And here's an example of what I mentioned earlier in the game where you can utilize building pieces for measurement. I forgot to delete that, but that's a good example of it. So that's just a 4-meter building, and that's because I knew I needed about 4 meters there in between this section, the lowest point of this terrain, and the highest point of sort of the retaining wall here. One cool thing that I put in here that I thought was funny from the Denver Zoo is they have this sort of little cart exhibit thing just like this in this spot, but they have plexiglass up all around it because there's fake food on the inside, and I imagine they didn't want kids taking it or trying to take it or touch it or anything like that. So I thought that was a nice little touch to put the plexiglass around the scenery item there. And then here is where the elephants it's easiest for them to enter this large pool up here. And then I still have to work out how this gate's going to function, but basically there will be a gate on either side of this bridge, so you could further separate animals into different yards if you wanted to. But the elephants do use this bridge, which is awesome, and that goes into what I think is yard 1. Not 100% sure how they've numbered them, but it's the main yard that leads to the amphitheater over there. So we'll go take a look at that. So we got some backstage here for the clouded leopard. Oh no. All right, I'm gonna have to get out of the Tekken cam because I got stuck, but I'm really happy with how this turned out. That's something that I could see from the Google Earth view. Perfect timing. So the keeper actually goes through there. The clouded leopard would come through here to get into the building, but it's nicely enclosed and doesn't allow them to escape when they're making the transition from the main building to being on exhibit. So let me jump back into Peep View, and then we'll keep looking around. Okay, so I haven't really done anything in addition to what was already here on this interior. I'm still trying to figure this out. I think in part 2 of this episode we'll be finishing up how all of this functions and works, as well as the backstage area, in addition to the remaining work on the habitat itself. But still couldn't be happier with how this turned out. It looks so close to the original and the existing structure that's inside the Denver Zoo in present day. So again, you come up here, another great viewing area for the elephants. Typically, the times I've gone to the Denver Zoo, this is where they most frequently are found. They do a good job of spreading them out between all the yards, but a lot of times they're hanging out in here. Then you make your way over here. We've got the clouded leopard habitat, which again, I think is pretty true to the real one. Again, special thank you to Bro Nation member Stoppable Sand. He helped me get started on the netting up here, so you can see the custom wiring for the netting. And when we pop out of the peep view, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. But yeah, just going to be a long process of getting that finished. I'm not completely done with it as it stands now. Not sure if we can see the leopard or not. Yeah, there he is. Alright, so continuing on, we've got a little outpost building here, which offers a cool view of the elephants if they happen to be in this area, and there's more work to be done here to hide some of that concrete and things like that. But you get another great view of the yard over here as well, which the elephants aren't in right now. And again, they do use this bridge, which is super cool to see. And I've got some additional work here. In this area here, they've got a huge donor wall of like bronze plaques of people who contributed to making it happen. And so this was my attempt at sort of a little bronze plaque, which will continue to flesh out here as I finish up the exhibit. I'm not quite sure what to do for a retaining wall here. This isn't exactly how the Denver Zoo looks. Like the terrain and elevation changes I have are slightly different than the actual Denver Zoo, so I'm not sure what to do for a retaining wall here. So any ideas you might have, let me know, but it definitely needs something to maintain this space. And then right now, just temporary fencing. None of this is anything that's real, or excuse me, part of the final product. But just needed to keep the elephants in the habitat. Also got the exterior of the cafe, the restaurant, done. This will actually have an interior that they can come in and use. You've got the bathrooms down here. I'm trying to make it work with the stadium seating. It's really, really difficult to do, but we're going to try to make it so it actually functions and people will come and watch an educational show over here. I think it's really important to try to do. It might end up not looking exactly like the real thing, but still I think it'll be worthwhile. So popping out into the aerial view here, I'm still working on the shaping of this. It's not quite right to how the Denver Zoo actually looks, but one thing that I thought was cool, and you'll notice it in really here and along the edges here, they put in, so when you're down at the level here, it just looks like it's all fairly deep water, but when you look at it from like the Google Earth view, you can see that it's really shallow here, and I think this is just to prevent the elephants from getting too close to anyone in this area. But yeah, really, really pleased with how all of this came out, how it looks. And then all we'll have left to finish in the coming episode is this yard here and finish up this area, and then this yard here as well as the backstage. So I think we're about halfway done. After that, I'll be having a guest builder on, and I think they'll be moving into the African forest area first. And then at some point, we're going to have Carlos back. He and I have been talking about some ways to sort of improve this and make it not necessarily improve it, but make it fit in more with the Denver Zoo and the Tivoli Zoo feel of the master plan that we're going for here. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate. I know this was a long episode, and I know it was a long time in between episodes, but as you can see, there was just a ton of work to do, but really thrilled with how this exhibit is coming together. So anyway, thank you all so much, and I will see you in the next episode.